Hi everyone. In this video I want to show you standard deviation and try to simplify it just a little bit. Now the first part of this I'm going to show you all the detailed math and seriously the math is not nearly as important as understanding how to actually just use a function within Excel. So I want to show you how this spreadsheet is built here, how this template is built. But I'm going to show you a shortcut, something that will help you be a little bit faster with this. This is assuming that I only have 5 data points, and that's my entire population. This one is assuming that those same 5 data points are just a sample of a larger population. So here are my data points. I have some heights here in millimeters, 700, 500, 200, 450, and 300. This column calculates the average, and that is the formula right there. Okay, and then it just repeats that 430 all the way down. Then it calculates a variance where it's taking column B minus column C, okay, and doing that all the way down. And then it's doing the variance squared, so this 270 times itself. So here's my total population. All 5 of them is a population. This number takes the 148,000, divides by 5, and this is the square root of the 29,650. Now this square root, and I'm going to highlight this just for a moment, that number right there, that standard deviation, I can get to that in a function without having to do all of this math. Now, the other thing that I'm doing here is showing this number is taking the average, the 430, and it's adding to it the standard deviation. So one standard deviation is what is being shown over here in this graph for the population. This is my population graph. And so the 602 point whatever is this green line that's right here. Okay, and then this line, this one that's down below, that is this number. It's the 430 average minus the 1 standard deviation. Okay, so now this line is showing all of my actual data points. You know, it puts the 700, the 500, and everything on the graph. And then this middle one, the red one, is the average. That's the 430. So here's the average. This represents 1 standard deviation above or below that average. Within this 1 standard deviation, we have a couple of outliers. Here's an outlier here, and here's an outlier here. But this is the predicted, you can think of it in this way too, that with 1 standard deviation, the height we can predict to be between 257.95 millimeters and 602.05 millimeters. So that's the prediction we can make within 1 standard deviation. But look at this. Let's just take a look at something really quick. If you use a function, here's my insert function key. And if I type standard, and I'm just going to do that. Let's see. So there's my standard deviation of a population because the stdev.p is population. So if I click OK, it's going to ask me for input of numbers. So I'm going to do my population. There we go. And click OK. It gives me the exact same number that I calculated up here with all this complicated math. So as you can see, there's really no need for all this complicated math. So for this population, or if we think of it as a sample of a greater population, either way, we can now predict for 1 standard deviation just how tall or short something in this data set would be. We can predict it. So we take the average, 430, okay, and we can add that standard deviation to it, right? It gives us the 602. So rather than doing all of this math, you can calculate the standard deviation, calculate the average, and then this is the addition of one standard deviation to the average. and this would be the average minus 1 standard deviation. So rather than going through all of this math, we can do it this way. So if we need 2 standard deviations, all you have to do, take this average and subtract this twice or add this twice. That's all that is. Now, in order to do the sample, there is a separate function. So in here, what I have to do, and here's another way to look for it, is under the statistical category, there's all these different things that you can do. And I'm going to just scroll down to find the standard deviation of a sample right there. Click OK. And I'm going to put my sample numbers. They're the same numbers. And click OK. Now I have 192.353 blah, blah, blah. That's the same as that number right there. So again, this sample here, a standard deviation, you would do the same thing. Your average is still 430. You would still take the average and add 1 standard deviation to it, or take the average and subtract 1 standard deviation from it, and that gives you this predicted range, okay? And so hopefully this helps a little bit as far as how standard deviation can be calculated. And if you have any questions about that, please ask. I'll talk to you soon.